Welcome back to Think Design Work Smart. I'm Alex Bolboaca and I'm coming at you from the Mozaic Works studios. And what I have for you today is something a little bit different. It's a meditation on a topic. And the topic is the freedom to be wrong. We'll talk about the freedom to be wrong, particularly in software development, but I think it applies beyond it. I'm just going to focus to software development because this is what this channel is about. And if we start from the beginning and why is this important is, let's think about it. Everybody is wrong sometimes, perhaps much more often than we'd like to admit. And that's true in software development as it is in life. And it's even more than that because the path towards good ideas, the path toward creativity, goes through wrong ideas. One way I thought about putting this is to reach the oasis of creativity, you necessarily pass through the desert of wrongness. So when you don't allow yourself or your colleagues to be wrong at all, what happens is that you are blocking everything, basically. And you'll just come up with the same ideas. We'll just use the same things you used before. But the issue is that today we have a bunch of external forces. We have social media, well, people can shout at you. We have a lot of facts, which means that you can be corrected very quickly if you say something that is wrong. And look, there's some good in it. There's an increased sensitivity of people that leads to self-censoring. And all these actually lead to stopping yourself from being wrong. And I'm not saying that you should aim for being wrong all the time. Of course, we want to come up with things that are working. But oftentimes to get there, you need to go through things that are not correct or not complete or not, you might start from a fact that you believe that's completely wrong, but then end up with a conclusion that's actually very useful. And if you block yourself, then you won't get there. And I think this has become very prevalent in software development because the feeling, at least in teams that I work with, is that you need to be right for extended periods of time. The business needs us to be right. And there's also a general tendency of software developers to kind of censor each other, to ask each other to be right for extended periods of time, because you immediately shut down people who are not correct. But I think this has changed a little bit, or maybe I was naive in the beginning, but my first years of software development, we were a creative industry, at least the groups I worked in. I could see it in people that surrounded me, who had various backgrounds, but who had a general culture. They were able to discuss literature, philosophy, science, and then put some ideas from books or from science, or, build on top of those, even though it wasn't a straight reasoning chain. It was just exchanging, kind of like a ping pong between multiple people. And we ended up with some good solutions that were built on top of conversations that were partially wrong if you would take them, at every step in a way. And I feel that a lot more pressure has come to software development to be right all the time. And while I am perfectly, and I've been in favor of the end result being right, fewer bugs, fewer security issues, more attention to all these things, definitely, I believe these are absolutely good things, and these are things we should aim for. But we also need to accept that the process passes through wrong ideas. And here's my experience. So based on this idea that I had that look, creativity is part of software development, then I tried to come with creative ideas. And I think I did with a few. Usable software design, applying usability principles to the structure of code, because this structure of code, this design, is used by developers. So you see developers as users of software design, so how about applying usability principles to it? This is an idea that I think will eventually be used, but it takes long. Having tests with the production code. Why do we separate tests from production code? Well, the reason is historic, because that's how we were able to write tests. But right now, why wouldn't we have tests with the production code and actually have a self-testing mechanism for each component that we write, like many of the electronic components have? The state monad used in web applications, which I will be the first to admit that looks pretty much like a useless pattern, except if you want state to be stored in the web page on the client rather than on the server. So maybe there's something there. At least, I'm not saying these are all absolutely great ideas, but they are creative. And there's another thing that I really challenged myself to do, which was to explain monads without mentioning what monads are, that I'm explaining monads. And I've done this in a book on functional programming in C++. And look, perhaps I wasn't good at promoting this idea, fair enough. I'm not the best of marketing and promotion and all that. But what strikes me is that very few people, when I mention one of these ideas, tell me the magic words. Tell me more. What if? That's interesting. Let's explore this. This is the language of creativity. This is the language of being open and trying out, even ideas that you might think are wrong, but at least you take them into account and build on top of those. Instead, it's much better if you come to software developers with, this is how you should do it, A, B, C. That's the process. This tends to be much easier to sell, let's say, or to promote. And recently I've watched a very interesting talk. John Cleese of Monty Python fame has this talk about creativity in management. And he argues that people operate in two modes. There's the open mode and there's the closed mode. In the closed mode, people are very task-oriented. They think about what's step A, what's step B, what's the goal, and so on. In the open mode, we are exploration-oriented. This is the mode in which we are asking questions like, tell me more. What if he has sent? That's interesting. Let's explore this. Trouble is, creativity only happens in the open mode. And he also argues that most people spend too much time in the closed mode. And I can definitely see this happening. Okay. So I believe that for software development, part of the problem that I see is that the freedom to be wrong doesn't exist. it has turned into the fear of being wrong. And it just leads to less creativity, less creative environments. Okay, so assuming that this makes sense, what can you do? And if you feel this, that this sounds marginally correct, or at least if you find yourself open enough to say, okay, let's assume this is correct, well, what would we do? Here's one thing that I encourage you to do. I encourage you to take 1 hour with some friendly colleagues and allow yourself to be wrong for a short time. And the way I've run this is a session of unformed ideas. Perhaps you start from a specific problem or a category of problems, I don't know, bugs in software development. Am I right? What do we do with bugs? Okay. But then allow yourself to express unformed ideas, ideas that are not necessarily correct, not necessarily ready to implement, not necessarily even easy to explain, or maybe you can't even explain them and you just try and nothing goes out and you are blabbing something. But allow yourself and each other this freedom to babble along with these unformed ideas and see where this takes you. Now, will this take you anywhere? We don't know. I have absolutely no idea. But my feeling is that as long as we are in this desert of creativity, it's likely that you will eventually come up, and quite soon you will come up with something that changes the way you see things or software development in your teams. So this is what I would encourage you to do. Allow yourself and allow each other the space to be wrong for at least for short periods of time. We don't want to be wrong in the result, but we want to be able to be wrong in the process. That's very, very important. With this being said, maybe I am wrong. So let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? And let's try maybe an exercise and ask open questions. Use some of the magic words. Tell me more. What if? That's interesting. Let's explore this. What about? Okay, that would be interesting. But yeah, we love comments. So let us know in the comments what you think. And let us know if you try any of this, how this works. It also helps us if you subscribe, if you share, if you like, of course. Thank you kindly for the view. And until next time, remember to think, design, and work smart. See you on Saturday.